Today I'm going to work on the control stick. Probably work on the rudder pedals too, but I'm going to start here with the control stick assembly. So I've got my parts manual laid out, I've got my text, I've got the figures manual. Looks like I'm going to have to reference a couple figures in here for this. And I've gone through and looked at my parts listing and gathered up all my parts here. So let's get started. First thing I'll be doing is drilling out the bottom hole here on one of the sticks to 1/4 inch. Leave the other one here, I don't drill it, that'll stay at 3/16. In looking at the figure here, it says drill to 1/4 for push to talk wires, 5/16 if installing optional passenger seat electric elevator trim. So actually I think what I'll do, I don't know if I'm doing passenger elevator trim yet, I may or may not, but I think I'll just open this up to 1/4 inch anyway. I'm sorry, 5/16. And of course this one will get 5/16. Next, the manual calls for greasing up the thrust bearings and a little bit of grease on the shaft here, and then assembling the sticks onto the shaft with the thrust bearings and the bearing washer stack up accordingly, and then securing it with the 3/4 inch lock nut. Need to assemble the link tube next. Looks like it gets a rod end on one end here. There's a bushing, actually this shows better. There's a bushing number 19 that inserts in there that I'll have to cut from raw stock. And then just a stack up of some bolts, washers, and nuts. The tube that's supposed to go in here to act as a bushing, even after I opened this up, I cleared it out with a 1/4 inch drill just to clear out the powder coat, and even then it's a tight fit. It would have to press in. So what I'll do is I'll polish off just the end of this a little bit with some Scotch-Brite and just chuck it up in my drill. And the bushing does get opened up to a number 11 for the inside diameter. At this stage, the manual does call for installation of this into the fuselage. I will hold off on that as I'm going to build the rudder pedals next. Next up are the rudder pedal assemblies. Got all my parts laid out again, everything I'm going to need, with the exception of I am missing two of these. These are two lefts. I'm missing two rights. I have a set here, and I have half of a set, but I don't have the opposite sides for this, and that's not through the fault of RANS. The anodizing shop lost them, and I'm just now noticing, and unfortunately, that's my bad for not doing a full inventory when I got my parts back from Anodize. I went through everything, I thought I had it all. Apparently I missed that they didn't have these, and of course I reached out to them and I asked, hey, do you still have these? It's been 2 months. And they're like, no, we have no idea, of course. So I'm gonna have to order 2 more of the right side pieces of these from RANS, and I'll have to send those out for anodizing. So I won't be able to finish up 2 of the pedals fully, but I can do everything else and I can rivet them on later. To get started, I'm gonna rivet these to these. So we get 3 rivets here on either side, and then there's a match drilling that happens for this hole into this tab here. And I think I'm gonna do solid rivets on these. The manual calls for a rivet here, a CCPQ 62. I'm gonna do a screw and a nut, just for ease of being able to, for whatever reason, take the rudder pedal off at a later time. You've got the cotter pin here, which is nice, you can pull the pin, but it still doesn't let you slide this out. And until you can slide this out, you can't remove the pedal. So what I'm gonna do, what I need is an AN3-3 would work. But I don't have any, and I'm not going to order any for that. I'm just going to use some of my stuff we use on our robots here. I got a 5mm by 12, M5 by 12. Same diameter, basically. So it'll work just fine. So I've got that, and then a lock nut. This will be just fine. That'll be just fine. There's no real shearing load here or tension. This is just to keep this shaft in place. That is the only purpose that serves. So this will be fully serviceable. And actually I'm seeing something here. I'm gonna flip this cotter pin around because now the way it's clocked, I don't want the cotter pin facing my toes or my feet. Flip that around. There we go. Just finished the left side here, and after I was done with this, I noticed that I may have wanted to flip the orientation or mirror the left side on the right side. And I did the right side first, and I was just looking at the diagram here. Well, this is the left side, and you've got your axle pins. What are they calling these? Swivel bushings. You got your swivel bushings coming in from the right side on the left pedals. So I should have maybe come from the left side on the right pedals. No big deal. I didn't rivet these, so I could put them over here. The downside being I already drilled these holes here. I don't know if it'll matter. Either way, if I have to flip it, it won't matter that there's a hole here. But it may not matter that they're inserted from this direction anyway. So I'm just gonna run with this for now. If I find that it needs to be flipped over, I'll do that. Kind of place these together how they'll go. And I'm looking at it, and I just don't see any reason why these need to be flipped, other than maybe for aesthetics. If it just bothered you that these weren't symmetrical, it doesn't really bother me. Now I'll take this extrusion that they give you, and it gets cut to 1 1/8. Looks like four pieces. 4 pieces at 1 1/8. All right, so now here's my part. Here's my bushing. That'll sit there. Flush it out on the end, and I'll run a drill, number 11 drill, through that on all 4 pieces. Well, I got these parts done here, so at this point, the only thing that's left to do is mount the rudder pedals into the airframe. So I tried to fit one of these bushings on here, and there was no way. All this powder coating on here and then powder coating on the inside of this, not a chance. So I did some emery cloth on the OD here, and a sanding drum was actually just the right fit to get in here and clean this out. A little disappointing. With powder coating, you can mask off areas. We do it here, and they could have easily had their powder coater mask off these outside surfaces here, and you can even mask off the inside surfaces. They put plugs in here, and then you only powder coat the surfaces that need it. But I don't know why they didn't do it. It's not a big deal. It's just more work, and it's just not as clean of a finish. So anyways, I've got one done here, and I am going to do the other 3. Fitting the left side rudder pedal bar in here, and I noticed, so these holes are set for in the floorboard here for these screws, these AN3 bolts. They're already set at a fixed distance, and the tube, the rudder bar tube, was a little long. It was about 1/8 of an inch too long, and I couldn't get this bolt in here once I had gotten this one in. So I just took it out, and I took a 1/16 inch just on my disc sander, ground off a 1/16 inch on either side, polished up the ends again, and I did get it to fit, and I have no slop laterally there. It's a good fit, like so. Got those both in there. I did have to do the same thing on this bar. I had to take just about a 1/16 inch off of, I did it off of one end on this one. It didn't need quite as much, but I did get that to fit. Something I think I'm gonna do is, I don't know, I'm just not super fond of this arrangement here with this little plastic thing and then the steel tube bushing. I'm gonna draw up and engineer a single piece, just a solid piece out of some 6061, kind of a block that's just integrated all in one, and I'll have those machined out. I'll probably do a video on that at some point. It's a pretty simple part, and I don't know, I like it. I like that idea better than this. So anyways, these are in there. All right, hold up. I'm in editing now, and it's been a couple of weeks since I shot this part, and I did settle on a solution for those pieces right here. I'll show you what I did. Here's what I came up with. This is the factory part that they send you a length of this, and you cut it down to size like we did, 1 1/8, I believe it was. But I don't know, I just, like I said, I wasn't quite satisfied with how it fit. So I drew these up and had these machined and anodized. I decided to forego the solid piece design. In order to do that right, I would have had to press in like a bronze bushing, so that there was no steel to aluminum contact. A bronze bushing would act as a bearing, and probably like an oilite bushing would have been good. And I don't know, that just was really starting to overcomplicate what this assembly is all about. Doesn't need to be that fancy. So I just decided on these saddles made from aluminum, and they have a little bit of a wider footprint, and the diameter is appropriately for those tubes with the powder coat buildup. These kind of spread out, and because of the buildup of the powder coat, and I don't know, they're fine. It, you know me, I just had to go with something different. So this is what I settled up with. I'm happy with it. They turned out really nice. Uh, I'll show you what it looks like. Here we go. It's a little harder to see them now because, as I say, it's been a couple of weeks and I've got the boot cowl skins temporarily put back on here, but here's what this piece looks like. I feel it's a little bit of a better piece than what they give you. Oh, and I have 4 extras of these, made extras just in case they got bunked up during machining. They all actually turned out okay. So as of right now, I do have this set available. If anybody would like it, message me and I'll get you these for a really good price. I got the rudder cables run up here a little bit, just kind of starting to look and see what I need to do. Got some pulleys that I'll need to get out, some other hardware bits. Also, I'm going to need to do the rudder return upgrade that RANS has now. Maybe I'll pull those parts out and at least kind of start looking at what that's going to entail. I will have to drill a hole in the firewall, I believe, to mount the forward portion of that. Sticks will have to come out. No big deal there. I didn't really torque these bolts down. It's just kind of sitting in here. So I think I'm just going to maybe start working on some of those cabling things with the rudder return and these cables. It'll give me something to do here for the next little bit. I've gathered up my parts here for the rudder return system. That's what I'm going to start working on here. Got all the parts here that I need. Got everything prepped. And it looks like it's pretty straightforward. Just a couple cables around some pulleys, some mounts, and voila. Nothing to it. First thing they'll have you do is install the forward cable pulley. As shown in the parts drawing, leave the rudder return tension fitting loose to allow for easier attachment. So this is this angle piece here, number 14. They don't drill it for you in the 3 positions. It looks like definitely one gets put in the center, and then they don't really say on the ends. Whatever a nominal edge clearance is going to be is what I'll do. And then looks like it mounts to some tabs on the fuselage cage through the firewall into some tabs there. So I'll start with getting this marked up and drilled. After looking at it a little closer, I see what's going on here. These 2 tabs is what it's going through. So that distance center to center is fixed. That is what it is. And then I'll just put a hole in the center here, which is what I've got marked right there. So I think what I want to do, I tried to measure it from the backside here, from the inside, and I couldn't get an accurate measurement. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull the firewall off. I just have it clecoed on right now. I'll pull that off. That'll let me strike a measurement more accurately center to center here, and then I can transfer that to this piece here. It'll actually sit, well, it'll sit like this. Sorry, it'll sit like this in front of the firewall. All right, let's see here. Looks like it is 3 15/16. Glad I did this, because when I tried to measure it from the backside, I was coming up with 3 3/4, and I couldn't get the tape in there close enough, and I was trying to eyeball it. firewall back on, so now I can go ahead and transfer drill through those tabs. I'm gonna use one of my long bits for that, so I can clear all this pedal stuff. Temporarily got this piece mounted here. I just used some plain nuts. I'm gonna have to pull it off and deburr this hole here once I match drill it, which is what I'm gonna do next. I'm gonna match drill through here for the center. But one thing I noticed, it's not a big deal, but those tabs are not horizontal, so this plate runs at an angle. And it's just that my eye catches it. Not a big deal. Had I known prior, I would have offset these holes. I would have run this hole up a little bit and that one down, and I could have split the difference and probably got this thing sitting horizontal. But it's really no big deal. All right, I'm gonna get that match drilled. I got this piece in here. Just have it kind of loose fit in there. That ultimately gets tensioned up when all the cables are finally installed. Well, after looking at it, I couldn't accept it. It was driving me nuts. So what I did was I took the angle piece off and I milled slots in it. I milled this slot up about 120 thousandths, 150 thousandths, and I milled this one down the same, and that let me clock this to where this was level. And the hole remained unchanged because it just kind of pivoted around the center there. So when this all gets tightened down and all three get in here, it's not going to move, but at least it's level. I was just dreading that because that's going to be visible for a long time until I get my cowling on, and I don't want people coming around here and looking at that and thinking I drilled that at the wrong angle. So there we go. I got her fixed. Got this assembly fabricated here. This is basically this setup here. We got the tang, retainer, pulley, and then the reverse retainer and tang there. And that all connects to this link. So this will now go in the firewall, in that hole there, like so. And I'll go ahead and put that nut in, washer back on here. Again, I'm just using plain nuts right now, kind of while I'm figuring this stuff out. And about like so. And now these tangs will get attached to these arms here on the rudder bars, along with these tangs here for the rudder cables. That one and that one. Here's the aft piece. These two aluminum parts here, pulley, cotter pins, cable. Here's where this piece is going to go. It will go here. Now it's supposed to get riveted to the floorboard skin, and also 2 rivets here. Derek at CMDPK, another YouTube S-21 builder, had made a comment on one of my previous videos when I did the forward floor here. Said that what he did was he put nut plates here so that he could screw it up from the bottom. And what that does is that makes this removable. It makes the floor removable, so you can just unbolt your pedals, unbolt your stick, and the floor can come out. If you rivet it, then you got to be drilling out rivets and stuff to get your floor out. And I'm still really early in this build, and I don't know if I'm going to have to pull the floor out later on for servicing. It might be nice to be able to do that. So I really like that idea, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to rivet in some nut plates here. And then also, I did have to, Derek also mentioned, hey, you're probably going to have to drill out some of those rivets on this stiffener that I put in. This is not a factory stiffener here. I put that in, and I do have 2 rivets here that would have bumped into the bottom of this piece here. So I drilled those out, and once I fit this, I'll match drill through here and rivet this to the floor. This can rivet to the floor, that's fine, and then the whole thing can just come out if I can unscrew it with nut plates there, if that makes any sense. Really like that idea, so I'm glad Derek reached out and made that comment. That's going to be really helpful for me. But I can see how all this is working. It's pretty simple. Then these cables are going to come up here and attach to this, and basically it just creates a continuous loop so that if you're pushing both feet on the pedals at the same time, you're not putting all that strain on the rudder horn and on the rudder hinges and all that assembly. You're putting it on this piece here, being that it's a continuous loop. So pretty neat upgrade that they came up with. I wish my Cessna had that, because that's one thing I don't like. If I stand on both pedals, when I'm hitting the brakes primarily is when you're going to have a lot of pressure on both pedals. The rudder horn, in fact, let's take a look at it. I know this is not S-21 related, but in a way it kind of is. On this one, the rudder horn is outside the aircraft, and you can see those, one cable goes up here, attaches to this horn, and one goes to the other. And if you look, they're at an angle. When you apply your brakes really hard and you're kind of pushing on both pedals, this rudder horn will flex. And I've noticed it. I've felt it. I can feel it in my feet. And something like that would be a really nice upgrade for a 150 tail dragger. But anyhow, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to look and see what kind of nut plates. Probably I'll do some number 8s, I think would be fine. I'll see if I've got some. All right, I've got these drilled out to number 11s. Got my nut plate jig here. And I'm going to drill these out. There we go. I'll get these deburred. Oh, there we go. I got this riveted to the floorboard. That turned out fine. Match drilled these 3 nut plate holes through this skin. I currently have just one. You can see just one screw in here just to kind of cinch it down. And that worked. So there you go. This kind of creates your continuous loop. One thing I'm seeing is the Nico presses here and the heat shrink covering are getting to the pulley. That may be a non-issue because it may be that the rudder stops happen right before then anyway. That can be adjusted a little bit. I can maybe pull that pulley forward by tightening this screw and using maybe one tang or one hole in the tang back. I don't know. I'll see. But there we go. This is done. Well, it's been a couple days since the last clip you just saw, and I was editing this together, and during that process I just started thinking more and more about something. I really wasn't satisfied with the tangs that they have, these adjustable tangs. I couldn't get what I felt to be a good tension on the rudder cables, and also a good tension on the rudder return cable, while at the same time centering the rudder when the pedals were level. When I would bring the pedals level and I would get the tension the way I thought it was good, the rudder was sitting about 5 degrees off to one side. And so I thought, well, let me try just moving over. You know, they've got these adjustments. So you've got half hole adjustments if you go the next row up or down, and you got entire hole adjustments if you stay on the same row. Well, even at a half adjustment or a hole adjustment, it was either getting too much tension or I would get the rudder centered up and the pedal centered, but then the rudder return was slack. And you know, for the purpose of the rudder return cable is to keep the tension off of the rudder horn. So you want this to be tensioned a little bit, but you want your control cables tensioned. So there's a fine balance, I feel like, with getting everything tuned just right. Well, you can notice in the last minute and a half of me talking, I have made a change. I have put turnbuckles in here. I did pin eyes for this end, cable eyes for this end. These are -16S. These are -16 short turnbuckles. And I just like the idea of using an aircraft turnbuckle that is fully tunable. And in this manner, what I was able to do, I have it all set up now. I was able to get everything just right. I've got my rudder centered up. Well, it isn't now, but if I center that up and I come across here, all my pedals are in line, and I've got equal tension, or I've got good tension here, good tension here. And these are adjustable. Actually, these are probably a little bit loose, but I can give these a turn, each one, tighten those up. And this is gonna let me kind of get that fine balance between having the rudder return just right to do its job, and not put a lot of force on the rudder horn when you're stepping on both pedals at the same time. In my opinion, those aren't much. They cost, I think about, the whole assembly was maybe $35 or $40 per turnbuckle. I feel like that's something RANS should do. I get why they did the tangs, and maybe I'm an anomaly. Maybe my tang, just for whatever reason, or the lengths of my cable, or the rudder bar weldments, you get some errors in there that can happen. You get a little bit of an error in maybe when the cable was fabricated, maybe one was 3/32 of an inch longer than the other, and all those can stack up, and then you can get a condition like I had. Again, maybe mine's an anomaly, don't know. It's a neat idea what they do with these, and I'm sure it works, right? Because like there's a lot of these out there flying with it. But if you really want to fine tune it, then this is what you'd want to do. I am considering, I haven't decided yet, but I did buy an extra turnbuckle. Grab it here. This one has cable eyes on both ends, and I am considering remaking this one and putting a turnbuckle right here so I can tune that rudder return loop. And if I did that, if I did that, I would get away from the two-piece tangs here. I would just do a single-piece tang 3-hold. It would come through this one, the cable here, the hole would go through the rudder bar, and then this hole would go to this cable, and it would just be a single piece with an adjustable turnbuckle. Haven't decided on that yet. Maybe, we'll see. It will require me to remake this cable entirely and this one as well, but no big deal. They're really easy to make. So there you go, for whatever that's worth. Now keep in mind, if you did want to do this, there is just barely enough cable with the factory length cables to make this happen. It's very close. It's close enough that you might want to, if you were going to do this, I would start way back before these cables are even installed and just make new ones and deal with, having your own cable and working that way, because trying to work with the cable that you have with a little bit left over and trying to Nico press that, it was a little tricky, but in the end, it all worked out great. I'm a little disappointed. You may have noticed I forgot to put heat shrink before I crimped. Now this all gets covered up anyway, so it's not like you're gonna be rubbing your ankles against it or anything, but so what I just did is I used some of my BMW fabric tape. Works really good and probably be okay. But there we go. I now have rudder cable turnbuckles for full adjustability.